Well, the shutdown melodrama continues. I love the smell of melodrama in the morning. It smells like the United States Senate. I said the other day that this shutdown is just further proof that human evolution is a slow process. This shutdown, what you're witnessing now, is just further proof of why it took human beings thousands of years to learn how to stand upright. This shutdown is bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. Some shutdowns are based on policy. Some shutdowns are based on politics. Some shutdowns are based on a combination of both. This one is pure. It's pure as ivory snow. This shutdown is based on politics. Let me tell you what's going on. I believe in a two-party system, Mr. President. Why? Because two parties create competition. And competition makes all of us better. The Democratic Party, the opposite of my party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is competing within itself right now. And there is a distinct wing of the Democratic Party that is winning that competition. If I wanted to use a pejorative expression, I would call it the loon wing of the party. The loon wing of the Democratic Party. Or you might call it the Bolshevik wing of the Democratic Party. I think a more accurate description is to call it the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. I think that's fair. Now, I'm not saying that all of my Democratic friends are socialists, but there is clearly a wing of the Democratic Party that can only be described accurately as the socialist wing of the party. And that party is in ascendancy. That party is in control. Now, my friend Senator Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate. And he, of course, has instructed his colleagues to vote to shut down government. And Senator Schumer has been criticized for that. And I understand. I don't agree with him. I think he made a mistake. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the leader of this effort. I don't. I think Senator Schumer, like many of his colleagues, would like to be loved by everybody in the party, and he would like to be loved by the socialist wing of his party. And I do think that's part of what is motivating this shutdown, and that's why I say it's all about politics. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the person in charge, because Senator Schumer is not the leader of the socialist wing of his party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is. She's running the show. It was no accident the other day the Congresswoman let it slip. She said, if you really want to negotiate at the end of this shutdown, come see me. Come see me. And I think any fair-minded person has to look right now and say that the two leading members, the quarterback, the two leading members of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, the quarterback is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Now, her substitute is Senator Bernie Sanders. But I think it's the Congresswoman who's calling these shots. Now, Mr. President, I don't hate anybody. I've said that repeatedly, and I mean it. I like all of my colleagues. I look for grace wherever I can find it. When I say my prayers, I do. Every single time I ask God, don't let me hate, because it's hard sometimes. It's hard up here. But I do. I say, God, don't let me hate. And I certainly don't hate Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I want to make that very clear. She has the right to her opinion. She has the right to try to have the socialists take over the Democratic Party. That's the American way. Ironically, I think what she's doing is anti-American, but she has the right as an American to do it, so I don't hate her. But I judge her by her policy. She has her opinion and I have mine. And I have to judge her candidly by her policy. Here is what the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, led by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, has said to the American people and to the United States Congress and the Republicans in Congress. If you Republicans don't agree to make the federal government $1.5 trillion, not $1 million, not $1 billion, $1.5 trillion bigger, we're going to shut government down. Well, of course we said no. I'm not going to vote for that. My mother didn't raise a fool. And as I've said before, if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm never going to vote for that. Now, where do I come up with this figure of $1.5 trillion? Well, the first thing that the socialists and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is asking us to do is to repeal the health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We just passed them. Here it is, Subtitle B, Health, in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, we didn't cut Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill. In fact, under our bill, Medicaid is going to increase 2% a year over the next 10 years. Now, what we did by reforming Medicaid, which Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez wants us to reverse, we cut out the waste and the fraud. For example, we found out that there are, no kidding, I'm not just making this up, we found out that there are 2.8 million people on Medicaid who are double dipping in America. They're either signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and Mississippi, double dipping, or they're signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and they're signing up for the Obamacare subsidies. That's called cheating. Our bill would put an end to that. And it would save about $140 billion on 10 years. The socialist wing of the Democratic Party and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez want us to reverse that. The second thing we did in our health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill is to say you've got to stop lying when you apply for Medicaid. Under President Obama, we had virtually no eligibility checks. People could walk in and the Medicaid folks would say, how much do you make a year? And they could say $30,000 a year. And they'd say, okay, you qualify. Now, I trust people. I've said it before on this floor. I play cards with my friends all the time. They're friends. I cut the cards anyway. We have found, for example, just in Louisiana, we did a statistical sample of the people on Medicaid in Louisiana. Our auditors found 1,600 people on Medicaid making $100,000 a year or more. That's cheating. So our bill put an end to that. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the socialist wing of the Democratic Party want us to put it back. They want to let people cheat. What else are the socialists asking for in this $1.5 trillion? Well, they're saying we don't want people who can work to work. We put a provision in our bill that the Congresswoman and the socialist wing of her party want us to take out that says, look, if you're between the ages of 19 and 64 and you're able-bodied, we're not talking about a mother with a sick child in her arms, you're able-bodied, you're perfectly healthy, and you don't have any dependent kids at home, then if you qualify based on income, we'll give you Medicaid, but you have to work. You have to work 20 hours a week or go to school 20 hours a week or do community service 20 hours a week. Because the free enterprise system, jobs, have done more to lift people out of poverty than all the social programs put together. That's what's called a work requirement. What's wrong with that? Those who can't work should work. Our welfare programs were meant to be bridges, not parking lots. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the socialist wing of her party want us to reverse all of that. What else do they want us to do? Well, they're upset at us over the Affordable Care Act. Now, let me tell you what all this is about with the Affordable Care Act. Under Obamacare, if you are a low-income American, you're entitled to Medicaid. If you are a middle-income American, you have a job, then chances are you get insurance through your employer. Most people do. But if you're in the middle, you make a little more money than the poverty level, but you can't get insurance through your employer, we provide what's called the Obamacare exchanges. So when we talk about the Obamacare subsidies, that's what we're talking about. It's about 24 million people. And it was meant for lower income people. Up until 2019, it was all for low income people. And then in 2019, without any Republican votes, President Obama said, look, we're in a pandemic. We're going to raise the limit. We're going to say there are no income limits on Obamacare paid for by the taxpayer. We've got 24 million people on Obamacare. When they raised the limits, you can make any amount of money and still get a subsidy. That added about 1.6 million people on Obamacare. Obamacare was meant for people who make from roughly $30,000 a year to $130,000 a year, families of four. Now, because President Biden raised the cap, we've got people making $600,000 a year, $150,000 a year, families making $200,000 a year, getting subsidies from the American taxpayer. Why? Because they said we needed it in the pandemic. The pandemic is over. And that's why the Democrats, when they passed the bill, put in a provision that says at the end of this year, those extra subsidies are going to end. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez says no. Until you agree to let them continue, to let anybody at any income level get subsidies, we're going to shut government down. That's their third demand. And that is part of the $1.5 trillion. And finally, of course, the Congresswoman is saying we want you to give $500 billion, not $500,000, not $500 million, $500 billion. We want you to give $500 billion to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting because we like what they say. Well, we just eliminated money for all forms of media in the Affordable Care Act. Now, those are the demands. Those are the demands. I'll mention one more. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez got very, very upset, as did the socialist wing of her party, when the president sent over what's called a rescission package. Basically, President Trump just said, we want you to take some stuff out of the budget that we think is wasteful. And we did. And that upset the Congresswoman. She's entitled to be upset if she wants to. But that really upset the socialist wing of the party. And so we took out, and here's what they want us to put back in. We found that under President Biden, they were spending $3 million for circumcisions and vasectomies in Zambia. We took that out. The Congresswoman says, we're going to shut down government till you put that back in. We found $500,000 of American taxpayer money for electric buses in Rwanda. We found $3.6 million for pastry cooking classes and dance focus groups for male prostitutes in Haiti. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. That was in the budget under President Biden. We took it out. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez in the socialist wing, the loon wing of the Democratic Party, says we're going to shut down government until you put it back in. I'll just read you a few more that we took out. They are demanding we put back in. $6 million for media organizations for the Palestinians. $833,000 for transgender people in Nepal. $300,000 for a pride parade in Lesotho. $882,000 for social media mentorship in Serbia. $4.2 million. We took it out. The Congresswoman and the socialist wing of their party says we've got to put that back in for the open government. $4.2 million for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people in the Western Balkans and Uganda. I could spend the rest of the afternoon here. We took all that out. It upset Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. It upset the socialist wing of her party. And now that wing of her party and the Congresswoman are threatening all other Democrats and saying, you've got to shut that government down until we get what we want. And part of what they want is to add this kind of stuff back into the bill. And that's what this fight is all about. We're in the process of negotiating a budget with our Democratic friends. We ran out of time. The cutoff was midnight Tuesday night. That's when the clock struck midnight and the budget ran out. What we had asked for and what we're still asking for is let's continue to negotiate, we meaning the Republicans and the Democrats, for 6 more weeks and try to agree on a budget. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for any additional appropriations, any conditions, any stipulations. All we're asking for is what we call a clean CR. All we're asking for is just further negotiate. And Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, who has done a stellar job in rising to the leadership of her party as a member of the socialist wing. They're about to elect a socialist mayor of New York. I think Mr. Mamdani's going to win. They have said to our request, let's just continue the status quo for 6 more weeks. They said, we'll give you 6 more weeks if you will give us $1.5 trillion. That's what they're demanding. And that's why we're shut down. Now, let me say it again, Mr. President. I don't hate anybody. This is America. I sure don't hate the Congresswoman. She is entitled to her opinion, but I'm entitled to mine. And she can criticize my policy positions, but I'm entitled to criticize hers. And I'm here to tell you, Mr. President, in front of God and country, based on her policy positions that she's demanding, based on her policy positions that she is demanding, that I just outlined, $1.5 trillion of pure, unadulterated spending porn. Based on that demand, based on her policy positions, the American people are looking at her and saying, this person has single-handedly put an end to dumb blonde jokes. Because that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Based on her policy positions, $1.5 trillion of this kind of spending porn, the American people are looking at the Congresswoman and saying, with respect, she must be bilingual. She must speak English and stupid. And that's why we're not agreeing to it. Now, I know every one of my Democratic colleagues, and I know more than half of them know better. They know what we're asking for is reasonable. I'm just asking them to meet us halfway. We're not asking for any additional provisions. They shouldn't ask for any additional provisions. And let us just open back up and continue to negotiate for 6 weeks. Don't be scared of the Congresswoman. Don't be scared of the socialist wing of your party. I suggest the absence of a quorum. So would you withhold that request? Mr. President, only because Tony asked me to. I'm supposed to read this, Tony? Yes, please. Okay, you've proofed it. I ask unanimous consent, Mr. President, that when the Senate completes its business today, it stand adjourned until 3:00 p.m. on Monday, October 6th. You check those dates, Tony? That following the prayer and pledge, the journal of proceedings be approved to date, the morning hour be deemed expired, the time for the two leaders be reserved for their use later in the day, morning business be closed, and the Senate resume consideration of Cal 115 S2296. Finally, that the cloture motions filed during Friday's session of the Senate ripen at 5:30 p.m.
Without objection.
If there is no further business to come before the Senate, Mr. President, I ask that it stand adjourned under the previous order.
The Senate stands adjourned until 3 p.m. on Monday.